Hi friends! You might be wondering why I look completely different from the thumbnail. Well, that's because I got a ring light. Like my very first investment into this YouTube channel. So I got a ring light because the lighting in my new apartment sadly is really not so good if I don't film like at 10 in the morning, and I usually can't do that because I have a full-time job. So yeah, I have to refilm this video because the first ring light I got made a very high-pitched noise when I turned it on, which I didn't notice while I was filming, but the entire audio of the video I filmed was like, yeah, not usable. So we're redoing this. Anyways, welcome back to my channel. My name's Anna. I like to talk about books, and as you might have guessed from the thumbnail, the video title, this is all the books I've read in 2023. I will just go through them chronologically from first to last, January to December, and give my rating and like a really short recap because there's more than 40 books to go through and I don't want this video to be 2 hours long. I'm probably gonna be recording for more than an hour and then have to cut it down really harshly because I don't want to, like, no one's gonna watch me ramble for an hour, right? So let's just get right into it. So the first book I read in 2023 was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This was a 5-star read for me. I really enjoyed it. It is very similar to A Secret History, which is one of my all-time favorite books. Like, the plot was quite similar, maybe even too similar at some points, but also kind of different enough. So what's this about? This is about a murder happening at a very prestige theater college, and it's about this group of friends who murder one of their own, which is not a spoiler because it's literally told in the first few pages. And then we go along and figure out why. Next was The Alchemist by Paul Coelho. Coelho, I think that's how you say his name. I do like the author. He has written some books that I've given 5 stars. This, though, for me was like barely a 2-star read. I think it was a lot of wannabe philosophy where there wasn't much to say. It was a lot of empty phrases that you just, like, you know, write on calendar pages. I don't know, I didn't really like it a lot, but I loved that the author includes the theory that everything in this world kind of shares the same soul, or that everything comes from the same source of like energy. And I don't know, that was something I liked, so did save it to a 2-star. Next up was I'm Glad My Mom Died, which is the biography of Jennette McCurdy. She touches a lot on eating disorders in here and like how she grew up and how she got into acting, that kind of her mom basically forced her, and everything surrounding that. It's very heavy on some points, but it's written so, for the topic it touches on, it's written really lightly, and there's a lot of sarcasm and humor in here, and I think it was a good way to work around the topics that sometimes do get a bit heavy. I thought it was very funny, but also very educational. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. Next up was A Farewell to Arms, which is a piece of fiction that plays in the First World War. It's about an ambulance driver and kind of a bit of a love story. I gave it 3.5 stars. I kind of liked it, but I also thought that sometimes it was a bit slow paced, but in general, not too bad. It was my first Hemingway. I'm sure I'm gonna read another, not sure when though. Next up was Once There Was a War by John Steinbeck, which is a piece of non-fiction short stories, or like, actually it's a compilation of war correspondence letters that were published in US newspapers in the Second World War this time. And this is, well, we follow this war correspondent obviously because it's his correspondence letters, and from around Europe. So he travels to England and also some other parts of Europe, I think Italy at some point. And yeah, we read what he kind of encounters on a daily basis. Next up was What White People Can Do Next. I always try to take a step back when I talk about race issues because I am a blonde, white, privileged girl in the middle of Germany. So, but taking a step back does not mean not talking about it. This book was a 4-star read for me. I think it touches a lot on intersectionalism, and it also talked a lot about microaggressions, which I think is so important to just read about, because I myself sadly have to admit that I don't really feel like I have seen, like from my own view, a lot of the things that were touched on, which are now a lot more present to me and that I am now able to recognize. Anyways, I would always recommend to read up on social issues. My first fantasy of the year, which was She Who Became the Sun, and I can just say I adored this. This was a 4.5 star. Quickly, it's about a girl taking on the identity of her brother who died in a very little village, and then she goes on to live in a monastery and become a monk, obviously hiding that she is not a man. It plays in, I think, the 17, wow, it plays in the 1300s in China, and this monk goes on to do big things. That's kind of all I want to say about it, and it's definitely worth your time. Next, I read Legends and Lattes. I could not pass up on this because everyone was raving about it on BookTube and Instagram and BookTok, and just everyone bookish was talking about this. And it was a 5-star read for me. Perfect, cozy fantasy about an orc that is just done being a headhunter and wants to open up a coffee shop in a town where no one has ever heard of coffee. Lovely, lovely book. Super easy to get through. Was a speedy read. Definitely recommend. Then came Animal Farm by George Orwell, which is a classic. A classic, simply recognizable by the Penguin edition. I love my penguins. Animal Farm, 5-star read. What can I say? Everyone should be forced to read this. It's about farm animals that decide that they no longer want to be under the rule of men, of humans, and they kind of develop their own political system, which very quickly gets out of hand. Yeah, I think everyone should have read this. Next up was A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. I sadly don't have a physical copy. I listened to this as an audiobook, and last year I kind of had my first few touch points with audiobooks ever since I was a child. Obviously, as a kid, I used to listen to, well, CDs back then to fall asleep of all of my favorite stories. But as an adult, I kind of never did, and I do always love having the book in my hand, and I prefer reading something with a physical copy. But I more and more discover that some things I really like to just listen to as an audiobook on the go, which is very fun, and also I love doing like household chores and just listen to an audiobook while I do them. But anyways, A Journey to the Center of the Earth, lovely, lovely book. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. And actually, I'm very glad I did listen to it as an audiobook, because I think in a physical copy this would have been a bit more exhausting, but as an audiobook this was really fun, and I'm glad I finally got to, well, read the book. Next up was The Londonsian Society, which was a 3-star read. Like, that's quite solid. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't amazing either. It's about a girl that is from London who learns the art of seance, of talking to ghosts, from a very well-known medium in Paris to help solve the murder of her sister that happened in London. A lot of things happen that take her and her teacher back to London, and there's an intrigue, and there's more murder, and there's mystery, and I liked it. Definitely solid, not 100% my cup of tea. And then came a non-fiction, which is Unmasking Autism. I have been reading up on neurodiversity a lot last year, how the autism spectrum is so much more diverse than most of us know, because honestly, how many touch points do we have with it except for stereotypical TV and movie show characters? And I kind of wanted to change that and read this, written by Dr. Devon Prince, who themselves have an autism diagnosis, and yeah, this was very interesting. It was a solid 4-star read. And then I finished up Bermuda, which this was a 3-star read, which is so sad, because this book started out amazing. I loved it to like the halfway point or like 3/4 in. And then, well, let's give you a bit of a background. So this is about a shipwreck, and the people who survived the shipwreck land on an island, and there's very strange things happening. There's like time anomalies and like just very, very weird stuff. And it was amazing. It's in the Bermuda Triangle, as you can guess from the title. And I was obsessed, like let me tell you, obsessed with the Bermuda Triangle as a kid. So I was sucked right into this story. But spoiler here, if you're interested in this, skip the next 30 seconds, whatever. The author decides to just end it with aliens. Everything was like, the characters started to research what was happening and started to explain to themselves how the weird things were happening with magnet fields and all this stuff. And I would have loved a fake scientific explanation, but no, the author just goes, oh yeah, aliens, and then it's kind of done. Which, that was really sad. The next book was a reread, which is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, and 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. I adore this book with all of my heart. This is a high fantasy about a lot of different characters, hard to summarize honestly, but it's an amazing sapphic love story. Well, actually you have love stories of every combination of genders in here, but yeah, it's very, very lovely. It's high fantasy. It has dragons, which is always something you can catch me with, like put a dragon on the cover and I am very tempted to buy the book. With strong female characters, a great magic system, a lot of politics actually, but I like that in a high fantasy. And yeah, I reread it so that I could read the second part, which I then noticed the second part is actually a prequel that is set a few hundred years before, but I definitely did not regret rereading this masterpiece. Before I stepped on to the second book though, or the prequel, I listened to this gem. We all know Percy Jackson, probably we all know that there's a new TV show that Rick Riordan is like fully on board with, and I kind of do want to watch the show, but I have to admit, as a kid, I never read the Percy Jackson series. And I feel like I missed out, because I do love Greek mythology. I'm like, why did I never read Percy Jackson? So I started listening to it, but so far I've only listened to the first book, still up to this point in January 2024. But I don't regret it. I gave it 4 stars. It was highly enjoyable, and I'm probably going to continue this year with the series. Then I read Second Place, which I was gifted by a dear friend of mine for my birthday last year, and this was just interesting, honestly. I gave it 4 stars. It's a lot about aging. This book, you know how people say don't meet your idols? Yeah, that's this book. But it also feels like a summer breeze. Like, this was the perfect book to just sit out on a veranda and watch the trees sway a little bit in the summer breeze and read through this. It's also short. Yeah, it's about a woman meeting her idol and him not being what she expected him to be, and them not having the relationship she wanted to come out of this meeting. Then I finally got to A Day of Fallen Night, which is the prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree. Samantha Shannon likes her books big, but actually it's a bit misleading because the margins are huge and like the print is also not exactly tiny. So it's just chunky. It's just chunky, which makes a lot of people afraid, but it's worth it, like 100%. Again, amazing female main characters, plot and world building, 110% done right. Dragons. Do I have to say more? There's dragons. Go read a book with dragons. Next up was, I have to Google the English title. Let me see. Because listen, I read a lot in English, but not every book, because I am still German and sometimes I like to read a German book. Penumbra. Alright, so the English title is Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. This is a bookstore that, as you could guess from the English title, is open 24 hours a day, and there's this dude who really needs a job, and so it's working there, and there's 3 rules. Never be late, never leave early is 1 rule, they're combined. Never look into the books, which is weird, right? And always write down in the journal we have on the counter every customer that comes in a very, very detailed description. And it starts off great, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 3 stars, because also, like, I think some people might like this. I always love to hear why people didn't really enjoy a book, because those reasons might be the reason I do enjoy a book. So yeah, they really mix up the love for old books and tradition and mystery with high technology, or like back then high technology, because like 2010s or something this is set in. So yeah, they mix like this weird, strange, mystery, cozy bookstore with the enterprise Google in the plot. And that did not do it for me, but yeah, for everyone who's interested in that, check it out. Then next up was Talus. I gave this 3 stars. Don't have too much to say about this. It's about a girl living in Edinburgh. She is working as a ghost tour guide in like the catacombs, or like some places underground in Edinburgh, and she kind of stumbles upon a magical world and discovers that there is actually magic. The magic system was a bit confusing to me. It wasn't like actually elemental magic, but there were different groups of people who can access magic that is used for different things, and there was like potion brewing, and there was like curse control, and like some type of elemental magic, but it's not exactly grouped into the elements. It was a bit confusing. And there's this magical artifact that is called the Talus, that is like very, very powerful and was lost for hundreds of ages, and we're on the hunt for this little cube. It wasn't bad, wasn't amazing, so I have to admit, this is a series. I'm not gonna read the second book, and I'm probably gonna unhaul this copy as well very soon. And then next up was The Virgin Suicides, which I picked up because of Jack Edwards, I think, because I regularly watch his YouTube channel and I usually enjoy his 5-star reads as well, even though I've noticed that our tastes have kind of grown apart a bit in the past few years. The Virgin Suicides was a solid 3-star read, also not amazing but not bad. There's a family with a lot of daughters and all of their daughters took their own lives within the span of a year. We follow them for this year and a bit afterward, but the story is told like from the future, so looking back on the events from someone who lived in the neighborhood, and he talks always in like a we. He always talks as we, so he says we thought this and we thought that. So you think in the first few pages that it's about why they took their lives and that everyone kind of wants to know, but actually it's just about how that affected the neighborhood and the people around and how they dealt with it, or rather about how they moved on from it. I thought the narrative voice was a bit irritating. 3 stars. Next up was Practical Magic 2 Magical Sisters. This is the German copy. This was darker than I expected. I was really in a mood for like witches and like a family story and a bit of cozy magic. This was not that. And this was rather brutally honest. Not brutal, not exactly dark, but brutally honest is I think those are the right words for it. So it's about 2 sisters who grew up with their aunts in like a weird town, and the family is always known to be like witches, but not in a good way, but still people seek their help. And their aunts only did like love magic work in this. Well, see, what I also love is that there never is like specifically said that it's magic, and no one really admits that it's magic. It's like weird things they do that have unusually strong impacts on things around them, or there's unexplicable things happening that you can't really explain otherwise than it being magic. But no one ever really talks about anything being magical, which I kind of love. It's like we all know they're witches, but they're not witches. I don't know if that makes sense to you. But yeah, and then it's about how those 2 grow up and how they deal with what they've lived through in, well, their childhood and growing up, and they're both very, very different and lose contact but kind of find back together and have to deal with a lot of things as sisters. And one of the sisters also has two girls, and we kind of see how she tries to give them a different childhood than she had herself. And yeah, it's all... I feel like, to summarize, this book is about girlhood. Yeah, no, I also feel like this book was about girlhood because it was about a lot of different female relationships. If that was family or love or friendship, there's a lot of girlhood in here. And then next was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which this was a cozy, cute little magic witch story. I needed that after the last one not being what I wanted it to be. So I picked this up because everyone was raving about how this was just a cute, cozy romantasy, or not even romantasy, but like a cute little witchy story with a bit of romance sprinkled in, and the romance was perfectly fitting for it, not overbearing what the actual story was about. It was like on the side, which I really enjoyed. And this is about a witch in England who is not supposed to admit that she's a witch or tell anyone, but she likes to pretend online on Instagram or TikTok that she does like witchy videos where she brews potions, but obviously everyone thinks she's just hopping on the Wicca trend that's online. And then a family reaches out to her and is like, we need a witch. Like, witch needed. Because there's 3 children that very, very much need a witch because they're witchy children and they're out of control. And from there spins a tale of found family and a lot of chaos. But it was so, so cute. I really want to read more of this. So if you have a recommendation of books that are like it, please let me know in the comments. Then next up was Open Sea, which I actually did read this as a physical copy and dedicated an entire Instagram post to it because I loved it. It was a 5-star read. Oh, by the way, The Very Secret Society of Witches was also a 5-star read. Yeah, Open Sea, 5-star read. I loved it. I don't have a physical copy because it was lent out to me, but I definitely want to get a physical copy because I love the book. I love the book. It's about a young man in England from a workers' town whose family is working in the mines, and it's set just after the Second World War, and he's just done with school, packs his bag, and just sets off to the countryside. And he meets an old woman in a little cottage behind an overgrown garden, and he kind of gets stuck there. He actually wanted to travel on, but he stays for a while. And it's good because he and this woman, they both teach each other very valuable lessons. And yeah, it was amazing. Everyone go read this book. It was amazing. Then next up was Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, which I also really enjoyed. This was a 4-star read. I really marinated in this. Like, weeks after I read it, I was still thinking about some of the sentences, some of the chapters. This wasn't just about romantic and sexual relationships, as you would maybe probably guess from the title. This was so much about friends as well. Like, this was, obviously it was a lot on relationships and sex and love, but it was also a lot on growing up and on realizing that there's love all around us that we oftentimes do not see in the present moment because we're society, we're sometimes very focused on romantic love, and we kind of forget that platonic love can be worth so much in our lives. Anyways, I loved it, gave it 4 stars, can recommend. Next was Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which I read on my phone actually, because I have the Libby app on my phone where you can use your local library card to lend out ebooks to read them on your phone. Because I was very much debating getting a Kindle last year, and I didn't, and I think using my phone was the wrong way to go about it, because first of all it drained my battery, my phone was empty right away. And also reading on the screen is a lot different than reading on a Kindle, so I think the comparison was bad, but I decided against the Kindle. I'm still debating if I want to get a Kindle, honestly, but whatever. Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Cute, wholesome Hallmark movie, but like as a sapphic romance. So lesbian romance, girl from the big city going back to the little hometown and just falling head over heels. It's really, really cute. It's also a bit of like Grumpy Meets Sunshine. It's lovely. Go read it. Next up was They Love, which is a German book. It's called Sie lieben. It's also not available in English because it was really just published in Germany in last October. And this is from an influencer that I've been following for a while. Well, it's feminism, it's empathetic, it's cute, it's queer, it's political, it's trying to teach you something. But it's also very surface level. It doesn't really go deep into anything, and it's short. And also, even though it's a small and short book, it's still written in like huge font, and like every third page was just one quote that then also was in the text right next to it, which was a bit confusing to me, but I still gave it 4 stars because nothing in it was anything I disagreed with. I read We Fell in Love in October, which is also German even though the title is English. It's another sapphic romance that I did not enjoy too much, to be honest. I gave it 3 stars. I love that it plays in my hometown and that I recognized all the local spots that were mentioned. I don't know, I really enjoy that when that happens in a book that I read, that I've been to the places and I'm like, yeah, I know that. I like that. But yeah, this book was about a girl from like the countryside moving to the big city and being overwhelmed with everything and like having her very first interaction with queer people, and that's really what it felt like. There was a lot of uncomfortableness, so I don't know, yeah. I think this is a queer romance written for people outside the queer bubble. That's what I would call this. Alright, next up was I Am the Anthropologist on the Mars, in German though, which again is a book on autism by an autistic person. This was very interesting, but it was very, very noticeable that this author loves to talk about their special interest, and autism was nearly a side topic. But yeah, I still gave this 3 stars. Thought it was very interesting. It's quite outdated though, because it's from the 90s. Next up was a classic again. It was Middlemarch by George Eliot, and I gave this 2 stars because it was honestly so slow-paced. Oh my god, it was so slow-paced. And there were a lot of different storylines floating together. I did try to tab it, because I tabbed some parts where there were just like amazing love quotes. Like I think I have to read 1 or 2 to you. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Dorothea, he said to himself, was forever enthroned in his soul. No other woman could sit higher than her footstool. Like those are the kind of things you read classics for, the epic love declarations. But no, this was a countryside period drama, and I was here for the tea in the beginning, but it kind of just drained me from the middle to the end. So yeah, 2-star read, to be honest, not a recommendation from me. Okay, we're coming to the last few books. If you've made it so far, you're doing great. We're nearly done. So this is Diary of Romantica, written by Celia Martinez, who I follow on social media, TikTok and Instagram, and she posts poetry videos where she reads her poetry aloud. And this is just her first poetry collection that she published. I love this, I adored this, I swallowed this up. I am a hopeless, or as Celia says, a hopeful romantic, and these poems they touched a spot in my heart that I am very willing to give to them. So yeah, at the end of the last year I did read quite a lot of poetry, and I really, really enjoyed this. Easy 5-star. The only thing that I'm sad about in here is that Celia is Mexican American. Well, I'm not sad about that, but I'm sad about not knowing Spanish, because some of those poems are in Spanish and some of them are even a mix between English and Spanish. I do still want to take the time to translate the Spanish ones so I can at least a little bit understand them. But yeah, I swallowed up all of the English ones. Then I read A Sun Swallowing by Dakota Warren. I discovered her here on YouTube, and I used to watch her videos quite religiously, and so when she published her poetry collection, I also got that one. This was also a 5-star read for me. It's really, really rotting girl core. Yeah, very enjoyable in my opinion. And then next was just a collection of love poems written by Erich Fried, who was a German, is a German poet. And I've also tabbed a few of the poems in here. I would love to read them to you, but I don't think a lot of you watching speak German because I always publish my videos in English. But yeah, also a 5-star read. Highly, highly enjoyed. And then, because it was coming to the end of the year and I had set my Goodreads goal to 50 books for the year, which is why I crammed in pretty much an entire manga series. Citrus is a series, like, let me tell you, I have not given them a rating, and I read the first 3 in the beginning of the year. I just skipped that earlier because I wanted to just talk about all of them together. It's a guilty pleasure, okay? Fine, don't come at me, it's a guilty pleasure. The covers are a lot more sexual than the story actually is, but it's really wholesome, even though it might not sound like it. It's really wholesome about 2 stepsisters falling in love. Say about that what you want. It's wholesome, okay? I enjoyed them. It's a guilty pleasure. Not 5 stars though, so it's like around the 3-star mark. And then to end the year, I reread Pride and Prejudice, which is one of my all-time favorite books. This is the blueprint for enemies to lovers, and everyone who loves this trope needs to read the original. For the very last book of the year, I read A Christmas Carol. I have watched a million movie adaptations of this, but I've never read a Dickens, and I've never actually read A Christmas Carol, so I finally checked this off my list. And I really enjoyed it, and I love it even more than all of the movie adaptations, and I definitely am planning on reading some Dickens this year. So, also, I am telling you now, I still track on Goodreads, just because it's a habit, but I am thinking about actually ditching Goodreads. Like in my last video, I talked about the app Fable, which is a new bookish app. It's basically like Twitter and Goodreads mashed together, and it's all about books. And I love it. You can set a reading goal, you can update your progress and see how much percentage you've read on your book or listened to from your book. Just like you can get on Goodreads, you can give reviews, you can post, which is the cool thing. That's like the Twitter thingy. You can actually just post random stuff, your thoughts, pictures, quotes from a book. You can attach the book your post is about, which is also nice. And it's just so wholesome because the bookish community is an amazing community and people just chat underneath posts in the comments, and you connect with others and you can see what others are reading, what others are thinking of their reads. You can post spoilers and like spoiler them, so you have to click on it to see the spoiler. And it's amazing. And the book was created because it's meant for book clubs, and I've started a book club with 3 of my friends, and we have it in Fable as well. So if anyone wants to join in on our very random, a bit lazy book club, please feel free to do so. We're gonna read a few different genres, but I think mostly it's gonna be contemporary fiction, literary fiction, and some fantasy stuff, maybe a bit of romance and YA, but yeah, that's what's probably gonna happen in our book club. But also, if you're not on Fable yet, go click the link down below. Fable is a great app in my opinion, so yeah, maybe come join the community. To wrap up this already, I'm sure, massive video, I just want to say thank you for sticking around if you watched to the end. I would love to hear what your favorite books of 2023 were, maybe even how many you read if you'd like to keep count. And if you've read any of the ones I've read, or if they're still on your TBR, leave me your comments. I would love to talk to you guys, and see you very soon. Bye!